my name's Brad Phillips. I'm here with Puppy Steps Training, and we're going to be doing Jay's demonstration today. We are very excited to send him to you. We really enjoy Jay. He's just a sweetheart and just a wonderful puppy. And so before we get started and pull him out and do all of our commands and things, there's a couple things that I like to address first off. The biggest thing is that he is still a puppy, as well as he is a living and breathing animal. And so because of that, he's subject to the change in his environment, and so going home, and there's going to be a transition period. Usually that lasts about 2 weeks. During this time, it can cause a lot of stress on the puppy, and so you want to make sure that you're not pushing him too hard. I would still expect him to do all the things that he does here, but I wouldn't try and really lengthen everything or make it, well, I just wouldn't really push him. And you can kind of tell, you'll be able to tell if he's wagging his tail or if his ears drop, things of that sort. The other thing is, I would always make sure that you end on a correct behavior. As soon as you let him end with an incorrect behavior, it can become where he thinks he can get away with things. So, the other thing that I like to tell people is just make sure that you're consistent with everything you do. You may not say the commands exactly the same way that I do, as well as you're not going to reward him the exact same way. And so he's going to have to get used to the way that you do things. And so just make sure that you're consistent. The last two things that I like to tell people is just to be aware of OK, which is our marker word. So it marks the correct behavior and releases from a state, as well as no is our correction term, which that I treat a little bit like a misdemeanor felony. If he does something simple, like he breaks a stay, I'm going to tell him no, and I'm going to have him do it again. Or if he does something a little bit more serious, such as jumps on me, steals food, I'm really going to have to give him a little bit more of a firm correction. And I do that by adjusting my voice fluctuation and my body language. Those two things are the biggest indicators to a dog. They can really read what you're getting at by adjusting those two things. And so it's more meaningful correction than any type of actual physical correction. Now, there is one other type of correction we use, which is a leash correction. And so that's not a jerk on the leash or anything, but it's just two little pops. And so all you're doing is making him aware. And we use that when he tries to jump or if he's pulling on the leash. And so once again, it's just two little pops. So now we're going to hop right into our program. And I'll cover all 5 steps, starting with socialization. Then we'll do our manners, then our obedience commands, our house training, and our leash training. So, socialization. Socialization is the biggest thing for me. I want to make sure that I protect against having an anxious or an aggressive or a timid dog. And so I do that within about the first 12 to 14 weeks of a dog's life. And what we do is, so when we first got Jay, he spent 2 weeks just purely working on socialization, working on getting him out to different places, different people, noises, things, just as many new situations as possible. That way we're easing him into new or uncomfortable situations, as well as we're making sure that he's getting used to and how to deal with those uncomfortable situations. As well as we focus a lot on that throughout the training, just by having him do commands on new surfaces, such as going from the hardwood floor to the road or the grass or the bed, making sure that he's going to be aware of new things and that he's going to be comfortable. Second part of our program is our manners. And so we're going to jump right in with those. We'll start with his gates and his doorways. And so anytime he gets out of the crate or goes to the house door, he's expected to hold a stay. Should be an automatic behavior. I shouldn't have to actually tell him to stay, but he should just do it. Now, if he ever does break, I might simply shut the door or block him with my foot. Just little reminders of what he's doing. And if he's just really persistent on trying to get out, then I might actually tell him to stay and physically give him the hand signal. So we're going to let him out. Okay, And I'll show you the house door when we go outside for his leash training. But instead we'll just continue on. His second manner is what he's doing right now. We call it his greeting. And so to help him remember not to jump on people, I expect him to sit before I give him any attention. So anytime I call him to me, Jake, come here. I expect him to sit, and then I'll come down and I'll give him some love and pet him. Yeah. The reason that's so important is because it does a couple things. One, it gets him planted, so once again he's not going to be jumping on you. The second is you get his eye contact. Dogs have a single track mind. Whatever they're looking at, that's what they're thinking about. And so if you have that eye contact, you have 100% of his attention. So next we'll show you his mealtime manners. Anytime I feed him, I expect him to hold a sit stay. Stay. Now, this is a great time to really work on those stays. We have what we call the 3 Ds, and that's distance, duration, and distraction. And so talking is a great distraction. Moving his food bowl, maybe increasing the distance from you and the food bowl, those types of things really increase the stay. Okay. Along with his mealtime, anytime that you eat, I would put him in the crate. I wouldn't banish him to a different room, but just having him in his crate prevents begging. As well as we try and feed him about 1.5 cups morning and night. Morning is usually around 7 o'clock. At night, we try and be as close to 6 o'clock as possible. That way he has a good 4 hours to empty out his system before we put him to bed. Now, one other thing that we do with his meals is we try and prevent any type of food aggression. And so I spend a lot of time just putting my hands down in the food bowl, being around his mouth, making sure that he's not going to be aggressive towards his meal. And that's really important, especially with small children. A lot of people will think that they just have the nicest dog in the world, and then they're surprised when a toddler goes over, sticks their hands in the food or water bowl, and they get growled or nipped at. And so we want to prevent anything like that. As well as we work on preventing any type of aggression, whether it's over toys or chews or food, as well as over their body. And so we make an effort to handle them. Not necessarily when they're eating, but just whenever we're petting him, things like that. So I'll make sure that I handle his ears, his paws, his tail, and that kind of goes with socialization as well. Just making sure he's comfortable. And that's really handy when you need to take him into the vet and he needs to get his nails clipped, that he's not really, protective over his paws, or he's uncomfortable having them handled. Now, as much as we do to prevent aggression, there's always one thing that happens that is mistaken for aggression, and that's usually with children. And so, kids are the greatest thing to a dog. They're the perfect height, they run, they squeal, they make it a lot of fun to go and play with them. And so the dog wants to play along, they end up grabbing a pant leg or an arm, and so we really want to prevent that. So I recommend anytime your puppy or Jay plays with little children, that they have something that they can hang off to the side, so that if he does end up grabbing something, it's a toy. As well as if they get nervous, if he's getting too close and they're a little timid towards dogs, they can throw it and he can just go and get it. And it'll prevent a lot of accidents happening. Wood. Okay. Now, a couple other manners that we really work on. One which we mentioned a little bit is his jumping. And so he was a very jumpy dog. And so we've worked a lot on making sure that he's not jumping up on me. And what you can see, he hasn't jumped up yet, and I don't expect him to. Now, if he ever does, we've instilled the command off. And so if he jumps, I'll just tell him off. If he jumps up on the crate, I'll tell him off, and if I can get to his leash, I can give him a simple leash correction. Now, dogs have a pack mentality, and so a lot of times they do find someone in the family where they think is lower than them in the rankings. And that is going to be the person that he tries to jump on, or he might try and steal food from. And so if they're jumping, a great exercise to do is I would take him by a leash and I would have that person call him to them. As soon as he goes up, if he tries to jump, I'll give him the simple leash correction, tell him off, and I'll walk away. And I'll do that a couple times until when Jay is called, he goes and sits in front of him. Then you can be done with that exercise. Now, if he's just really persistent on jumping, I would have that member of your family control the food, because that is a quick way to show leadership in a pack. The alpha always controls the food, and so if the person that he thinks is under him is feeding him, it shows leadership. So our next one would be chewing. Now, he is a puppy, he is right in the midst of teething, and so he just has to chew. And so with that, we train on a base of avoiding and replacing. If you can avoid giving him free access to shoes, to toys, to things like that, that's your best way to prevent mishaps from happening. Now, that's not really possible in your home. You're always going to have a couch or a table leg or something that he has access to. And so that's when replacing comes in. If I see him go up and he tries to chew on the couch or maybe his bed, I'm going to say no, and I'm going to replace it with something of equal texture. And so if it's his bed, I'll give him something soft that he can really dig his teeth into. Where if it's something like a table leg, I'll give him something hard like this bully stick. And you're just teaching him what's yours and what's his. Now, boredom is the #1 cause for mishaps. So if you have a downtime, whether you're reading a book or watching TV, a lot of times I'll just give him something to chew on. And as soon as he's done, I'll take it away. That way, you still preserve the excitement or the drive that he has for that object. Whereas if you leave it lying around all the time, he's going to get bored and he's going to get used to seeing it, and so he'll go find something else. And so that's a really good way to prevent chewing on your things. Now, the last two of our commands is gently and drop it. And so where I did just give him the bully stick, we'll do drop it. So with that, I expect him to physically release the object. And so I'll just come down and I'll tell him, drop it. And he should just give it right up. Now, you have to be careful, once again, with his teeth if you have something soft, just because his teeth can get caught in it. And if you try and jerk anything away, you can end up pulling a tooth out. And so you really want to make sure that he physically gives it up. And so I just tell him, let him get it again, drop it, and just let him give it up. Now, if it's something that he really doesn't want to give up, if it's long enough, you can hold on both sides, and if you hold it really still, it becomes unappealing. And if he still doesn't give it up, I'll just pinch my knuckles in, and it's just going to squeeze his cheeks against his canines and make it uncomfortable so that he'll open his mouth. Now, gently is teaching him to be aware of his mouth. And so we've taught him that even though he may be excited, I expect him to take a treat very gently with his lips or his tongue. And so if he's really wound up, I might just tell him gently before. And if he tries to jump for a treat, I would pull it back and I'd say gently. And then just expect him to be very careful taking it. Now, a couple things with that is, one, make sure you always give him the treat in the palm of your hand. That way, if he does get too excited, I can just close my hand. And, well, if you give it to him between your thumb and forefinger, you're basically asking him to bite your fingers. So just tell him gently and expect him to be very careful. And that is it for our manners, and so we'll move into our commands. And we have 8 main commands that we focus on. And that is come, watch me, sit, sit stay, down, down stay, crate, and go to bed. So watch me and come are our 2 most basic commands. We teach them from day 1, and those are really elementary commands that you really want to make sure that you keep the integrity attached to those commands. And what I mean is, say with come, that's the #1 command that everybody kills right off, which to me is the most important command, and so I want to make sure that the integrity is there when I need him to respond. And so the reason that people kill that command is because when do you call your dog to come? It's either when they're doing something they're not supposed to, or it's time to leave the park, or leave something that they find enjoyable, and so quickly they'll build a negative association with the word. They realize that it's time to leave, and then they just ignore it. And so for me, if I don't have to use that command, I'm not going to. I might, come here, something of that sort. Yeah, you want the treat. As well as I might just clip a leash on and go without even telling him anything. And I really just want the come command in place in case I need it, in case he's running into traffic or he's going something he's not supposed to. I want him to turn around and come to me. Now, as well as when I practice the command, I want to at least do 10 repetitions. So I keep a rule of 10 to 1. I want calling him to come 10 times for no reason other than to give him a treat, versus every one time that I really have to call him to come. And so it's very simple. I mean, you're just getting him to come to me. The tricky part might getting him away. Come! And so that's a great one to practice. You can just throw treats down the hall or down the road and let him go and get them, and then call him back to you, just to get some exercises in. So the second command is watch me, and all that is getting his eye contact. And so if we can distract him, watch me. It's just getting him to look. That's all I want. And that goes back to his greeting. If you have his eye contact, you have 100% of his attention. And so that can be as simple as him running into traffic, or whether you're in the kitchen and you drop a steak and you don't want him to get it, expect him to look at you. As well as that's a good one to practice, just so he gets used to the way that you reward him and the way that you say things. So you can sit here with a handful of treats and just distract him, and then watch me, and just expect him to look. Good boy. Now the next 3 commands have hand signals. And so that's sit, which is a scoop over the nose, down, which I just take my hand flat and go down, and then stay is just a stop sign. As well as both sit and down have stays attached. So sit, come here. I said just a scoop over the nose, down, just take it down, and then stay. Now if I'm doing what I consider a chain command, like that, where it's sit, which I always put him in a sit before I put him in a down, that way he's planted, and then down and stay. I'll give him the treat at the end. I won't give him a treat every time he does something. Okay, good boy. As well as he has a sit stay, we'll bring him over here. Sit. Hey, come here. Sit. Stay. Now also with the rewarding, so for the first year of your dog's life you want to be as close to 100% with some type of reward. Now we use treats a lot. Okay, and if he breaks I'll tell him no, and I'll make him do it again. Come here. Sit. Stay. But I always want to make sure I end on the correct behavior. Too much talking can be a distraction, and so we might just need to ease that a little bit. Okay. As well as I'll do it a couple times. Sit. Stay. But going back to that, so we use food as a reward. We also use toys and compassion, so getting down and petting him, and so you don't always have to have food on you, but just giving him some good petting is great. Okay, good boy, good boy. Now with his stays, if I put him in a sit stay, he's fine to lay down. Now if I put him in a down stay, he's never allowed to come up. As well as, like I said, if he does break, don't get frustrated or anything like that, but just have him do it again, and do it a couple times. Sit, stay, and you can keep him short if you need to, if he's breaking. Okay, good boy. Now, our next two commands are Craig can go to bed, in which they don't necessarily have hand signals, but I'll always put myself in a position where he can read my body language. And so for go to bed, I'll just point, go to bed. Go to bed. Now, I'll give him time to think, but if he really hesitates like that, sometimes it just takes me adjusting my body position, as well as adjusting him. Here, go to bed. There you go. And I don't care what position he's in, as long as all four paws are on the bed, as well as I expect him to stay on the bed when placed there until released. Okay. But you have to allow the dog to process and as well as to think before you give him that same command. And like I said, if he's really just sitting there staring at you, it might just take backing up, getting him away from it, and then doing it again. Go to bed. Just so that you're allowing him to process as well as you're giving him the hint of what you want him to do. Okay, boy. And same with Crate, as I'll just point, Crate. And I expect him to wait until released. Okay, good boy. Now for that one, if he ever hesitates, you can simply tap on the top or even adjust, swing around, things like that. But once again, make sure that when you do give a command, that you only tell them once and give them a minute to process and to work it out on their own. And if they still seem to just be staring at you, back up, get them moving, and then do it again. But always end on the correct behavior and be consistent. And with that, we'll move into our house training. So with this house training, before I teach you how to transition the bell, a couple things to note. One is that really for the first 2 weeks that I have a puppy, I'm going to leave a short leash like this attached. That way I have an easy way to correct him, as well as if for some reason he tries to squat in my house, I can quickly grab him and take him out. As well as during, well, probably for the next 2 weeks to a month, you want 100% supervision. That is very critical because you don't want him getting lost in your house or finding a corner and trying to go to the bathroom. And so if you can't give him that 100% supervision, put him in the crate. He's very comfortable in the crate. He'll be just fine. Use that as an asset. Now, it is also important to know that just because someone's watching over him doesn't mean it's good enough supervision. Make sure that you have someone that's responsible. It's best if it's an adult. That way, if something happens, you're there to quickly grab them and go out, and that my child's not going to lose track whether they're playing or doing their own thing, and the dog's just going to have an accident. So, but I can't stress that enough. 100% supervision. If it's not possible at that time, put him in the crate. You do not want him to have an accident in the house. And it is going to take some time for him to learn his way around your home, as well as he's going to have to learn where the bell is and where he's allowed to go to the bathroom. And so give him time to transition. As well as if for some reason he does try and have an accident, you want to build a negative association with the action. And so if I saw him having an accident in here, I would yell no or ah, and I'll clap my hands, stomp my feet, make some noise, just kind of startle him. You don't want to scare him terribly, but you want to make it enough that he recognizes what he's doing and he stops. So yeah. Now, when you're teaching him where to go to the bathroom and where the bell is, first thing you're going to want to do right as soon as you get him home is I would take him to the area where you designated for him to go to the bathroom. Pace around for a minute or two, give him an opportunity to go. As soon as he does go, you're going to want to mark the behavior. And our marker word for going to the bathroom is outside. And so I'll tell him, good outside, good boy, and I'll give him lots of praise, give him a treat, just make it very positive. And you're going to want to do that for the first couple times that he goes out there. Make it very positive, and so he's remembering that positive association with the action. Next, you're going to teach him the bell, or transition the bell in your home. And so I'm going to teach you how to do it, how I do it. And so we start by basically making it a game. And I'll warn you now that as I do this again with him, he already knows it, and he's going to ring the bell quite a few times. And once I get to a point where I'm taking him out, you have to take him out every single time he rings the bell. So I'll start by bringing him over, and I'll sit him in front of me, and I'll take a handful of treats. And I'll start by using okay every time he rings the bell. And I want to make sure that he actually hits it. Okay. And this is where you can control how loud you want him to hit the bell. Okay, and if I want him to ring it more, I'm just gonna ignore it. Okay. See how I hit it a little bit harder? Okay. I'll do that a couple times. Okay. And then I'll move over to the door. Come here. I won't hang it up yet. I'll just stand close to the door. Okay. I'm going to hit it just a hair harder. Okay. And after he does that pretty consistent, then we'll hang it up on the doorknob, and we'll give him that opportunity to ring it again. Okay. Now, at which point I'll switch my wording to outside. 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 Get him to ring it a little bit harder. Outside. Now I'm going to take him out. Outside. Good boy, let's go outside. Well, as I expect him to wait at the door. Okay. Okay. Now it's important that as soon as he does go to the bathroom, you come right back inside. Never allow him to play or get distracted. You want to make sure that he understands when I ring the bell, I'm going to the bathroom, I'm coming back in. Now at which point, when I'm first teaching him this at my house, I would take him right back over and have him ring it again, and I would go outside 3 or 4 times just doing a handful of repetitions. What you really want is you want him to ring the bell as many times as possible. The more repetitions that he has, the more it's going to stick and he's going to remember where it's at. As well, at this point, I would set a 30-minute timer, and I would take him out every 30 minutes for the next couple hours. When I do that, I would take him to the leash, I'd stand right here next to the door, allow him to ring it and go out. As well as for the first probably hour, I would sit somewhere near the door, and so you're close enough that if he really wants some attention and you're not giving enough to him, he'll seek out that bell strictly for attention, because you just got done giving him lots of rewards, and then you kind of shut off, and so it's giving him the opportunity to go and ring it on his own. After probably the next day, you can start to increase the time inside, build it from a 30-minute timer up to 45 minutes to an hour to 2 hours. 2 hours right now is our standard, and I'm completely confident in him to be inside 2 hours without needing a break. If you do have any questions with transitioning the bell or the house training, don't hesitate to give me a call. This is the biggest portion of our training, and you want to make sure that it transitions nicely into your home. And if you do these steps and you give him that 100% supervision, then you'll have an easy transition. And once again, use the crate as an asset. We spend a lot of time making sure that he is comfortable in his crate. And so right now, he's good during the day for up to 4 hours, being in the crate without needing a break. And that's in a 4-hour block, as well as he sleeps through the night 8 to 10 hours. Right now we put him to bed between 10 and 10:30 and get him out around 7. And he's completely comfortable. Now, with that being said, during this transition time, if in the middle of the night, the first couple nights, he wakes up and starts barking or whining, he may get a loose stool because of that stress. And so I would take him out, let him use the bathroom, then bring him right back in and put him in the crate. You want to make sure you put him back in, otherwise he can start to think that, well, if I whine, they're going to let me out. And you don't want him to get in that habit. You don't want him to whine just because he wants out of the crate. Now, also when you first put him in the crate, he may cry initially. You want to ignore that. Usually it only lasts a minute or two, at most 5 minutes. And if he does continue, I'll put a blanket over him, just making sure that that you're giving him more of a den-like structure, and he has to know that when he gets put in the crate, he just needs to calm down. And if he gets overly anxious at night, you can always give him a bully stick or something to chew on. But please let me know if you have any questions with the house training, and we'll help you. So we'll move into his leash training, and we take him on 2 types of walks. The first would be an off-leash or a long lead walk. This walk is just for him to be a dog. We let him run around, sniff, play, and just be a dog. Now as well, it's a great time to work on that come command. I'll take a pocket full of treats and I'll call him to me every minute or two, give him a reward, and let him go again. It's a really easy way to work on that come, as well as it's really enjoyable to him because he's coming back, he's getting a reward, and then he's going and playing again. And so when we do that, we take him up into the mountains, we take him down by the river, and just let him be a dog. Now, until you're completely confident in him coming back to you, I would keep him on a long leash. But as soon as he's really responding very well to you, then you can take him off leash and let him run. The second type of walk is our attention walk. And so when we go on that walk, it's basically getting from point A to point B. I expect him to be in a basic heel position right next to me, and I expect him to keep his attention focused either straight ahead of him while checking in, or just strictly on me. I want him to ignore the distractions around him. And so with that walk, we have 2 commands. The first is let's go, just signifying we're moving. The second is easy. And easy, you have to be very aware with that command. And when I say be aware, it's being aware whether he's pulling or whether he's just finding the end of the leash. Because if you're just standing there and you're talking to someone, a lot of times the dogs will pace around, they're just a little bit bored, and they might just find the edge of the leash. They're kind of finding their boundary, but they're not necessarily pulling. At that point, you can tell him easy and expect him to focus back on you and put that slack back in the leash. However, I wouldn't give him a leash correction at that point. Now, if he sees something that he's just focused on, he really wants to get to, and then he's really pulling, at that point I would tell him easy and I'd give him a simple leash correction. If for some reason he doesn't put that slack right back in the leash, I would turn around and I would walk the opposite direction and tell him let's go. As soon as he focuses back on you and regains his composure, continue on in the direction you were headed. And I would ease him up to that distraction. If he starts to pull again, do the same thing, turn around. Another thing is I tell my trainers to be a tree, root yourself. Don't ever let him pull through you. You want to make sure that you're standing strong, and that way if needs be you can walk the other direction. But as soon as he thinks that he can just pull you down the road, that's exactly what he wants to do. And that's why it's so critical to give him that leash correction as soon as he really starts to pull and turn and walk the other way. And so we're going to step outside and we're going to show you that walk. So if you'd like to follow me to the road, we will head out. Let's go. Okay. So with this walk, just pay attention to the way that he walks next to me. Let's go. exactly what I want. I don't want him pulling. I want a nice loose leash. And we can step inside here for the wind. The pavement's a little hot, so we kept that short, but as you saw, he just walked next to me with a loose leash. He wasn't pulling, as well as he was checking and looking at me, and that's exactly what I want. When we first teach them, we reward them every time they look up at us. And so now we're to the point where we're weaning him off of that much reward. And so occasionally I'll still give him a treat when he's focused on me, but I expect him to walk just like that. And he's a wonderful puppy. We really enjoyed Jay. He's just a sweetheart, and I think you'll enjoy him too. Please let us know if you have any questions, as well as keep in contact. We love to see updates, and I think you're really going to love him. Thank you.